Welcome everybody. Thanks for coming today. I will be talking for our third Lunch and Learn session about citizen science programs at Kawartha Conservation. Just bear with me here. For some reason, my slide isn't advancing. Okay, there we go. Sorry. So just a brief overview of my presentation. I'm going to look at what is citizen science briefly, and then I'm going to talk about the specific projects that we have here at Kawartha Conservation. And at the end, as Emma mentioned, we'll take some time to answer some questions, whether they're about our own citizen science projects or do you just have questions in general about citizen science. So I did a little bit of research and I was looking for a specific definition for citizen science. And what I came up with was that there is no standard international definition for citizen science. The common answer that's out there is it's scientific research conducted by amateurs or non-professionals, but I don't necessarily think that's exactly accurate because I know there's a lot of scientists who are engaged in citizen science projects as well as their own projects. So I think a better answer is just anyone who's involved in any kind of scientific research, whether they're volunteering or doing it professionally. So it can include basically the general public involved in scientific research. We've all heard different terms for citizen science. I think a more common one is volunteer monitoring. Crowd science is out there, public research, volunteering in general. So there's probably dozens of different terms that we've heard that are basically the same thing as citizen science. So who gets credit for the term citizen science? So there's two gentlemen, one from Britain, Alan Irwin, and another from the United States, Rick Bonney. And back in the 90s, they both simultaneously came up with the concept of citizen science. Mr. Irwin wrote about it in a paper, and Mr. Bonney actually looked at all these people who are out there birding and who could identify birds fairly well. And he thought that he could tap into that resource and expand his research. So independent of one another, they basically came up with the concept of citizen science, including citizens in research for scientific purposes. But these two gentlemen in the 90s may have coined the term citizen science, but citizen science has been taking place in other places for thousands of years. A good example is in China. Farmers have been looking at the outbreak of locusts for over 2,000 years to help identify impacts to agriculture. So that basically is the same thing as the citizen science projects that we have, but maybe not necessarily as formally scientific as we do now. So you might be familiar with a number of other citizen science projects that are out there. A couple of common ones that a lot of people are familiar with are eBird and iNaturalist. And one of the things that has happened in recent years is technology has really assisted with citizen science. So most people are carrying around a smartphone and they can easily upload apps. And a good example of that is eBird. So it has expanded the network of people that can participate in a citizen science project to pretty much a global scale. You can have anybody anywhere in the world submit data through apps. And the other thing that these apps do is allows for basically crowd data confirmation. So if you think of iNaturalist, you have a number of people who are very good at identifying all kinds of different things that are able to look at submissions and confirm the identification of things. So if you have a plant community that people are looking to study, then there's all kinds of confirmation of that data through the app. So technology has really assisted scientists and citizen science in the last probably 10 to 15 years. So why is citizen science so important? Well, one of the big things is if a scientist is working on his or her own, basically they're their own resource and labor is the big part of the project. But if you expand it to the general public, you have this massive resource of people who can assist you with your research. So you can expand the scope of your research projects pretty dramatically when you involve the public. And another reason that it's really important that citizen science takes place is it develops a level of trust between scientists and the general community, because the general public's getting exposed to what is scientific methodology, what are the scientists doing, they're part of the process, so they start to understand the science better, they can ask questions about the science, and through the whole process, they have a better understanding of how reports are generated and things like that. And on the flip side, scientists get out of their scientific bubble and they get out there and they talk to the public and they find out what the public's concerns are, what their concerns are with science, whether they have concerns with certain issues that are out there that they would like studied. And all of that, it also helps to build trust between the two groups. So you have citizens trusting scientists, and scientists start to grow a greater level of trust in citizens' ability to help them with their projects. And another thing that's great about citizen science is you tap into this vast resource of innovation. So you have people from all kinds of different sectors, they have different backgrounds, and they have different ways of doing things. And sometimes they can introduce things to a project that really help improve the project, either a different way of, say, sampling or looking at the data, or even maybe collecting the data and analyzing the data. So you're opening the door to a vast resource of innovation and methodology and knowledge. So for Kawartha conservation specifically, citizen science really helps us because we have a large area that we monitor. So our jurisdiction is over 2,500 square kilometers, and that 2,500 square kilometers includes 5 lakes and over 20 major creeks and rivers. And when you tally up all the length of all the streams and rivers, it's over 2,400 kilometers. So that's a lot of area for our staff to cover. So if we can include the public in our projects, in some of our projects, and have them assist with us, it vastly increases the scope of area that we can collect data on. So looking at specifically at some of the projects that we have going on at Kawartha Conservation right now, the first one is Kawartha Water Watch, and this is a long-standing program that's been going on for over 25 years, or almost 25 years. And it was initially developed by our current CAO, Mark Mahowski. And the Kawartha Water Watch program was developed to look at surface water quality. So volunteers go out and they take water samples, and they take samples on site to look at nutrients, and they also have the opportunity to look at the aquatic ecosystem by collecting aquatic insects. So each volunteer is provided with a kit that lets them do their sampling. They're provided bottles that they can submit their samples to the lab, and they're required to go out once a month in the summertime and collect water samples on a particular body of water or a stream. And each month in the summer months, that's submitted to a lab. And then at the end of the year, they're given a report on the data that they've collected over that year, as well as looking at the data that was collected in previous years and how it compares. So it helps us to look at trends in water quality as well. And a really big help for the Kawartha Water Watch program is every 5 years we produce a watershed report card, and we have to report on every single watershed in our jurisdiction. And in order to do that, the Kawartha Water Watch really helps to fill some of those gaps that we have in data, especially since Kawartha Water Watch looks at total phosphorus and benthic invertebrates, which are 2 of the main parameters that are in watershed report cards. So it's a really good helper in filling in all that data. So another citizen science project that we have on the go right now is the Nearshore Water Quality Monitoring Program. So this project was initiated in 2017 to help fill gaps in nearshore data from our lake management plans. So in part 1, our water quality specialist developed a project where citizens along the nearshore of Sturgeon Lake would look at water quality, so nutrients, and they would also look at the aquatic ecosystem, so the aquatic insects and algae in the nearshore environment. It started on Sturgeon Lake, but it has now expanded to all the other lakes in our jurisdiction. And initially it was partnered with University of Ontario Institute of Technology, and they have now taken on the lead of that project through a master's student program. The second part of that program, which is starting this year, is to collect aquatic plants in the nearshore environment. And this is helping us to look at the spread of the invasive starry stonewort in the Kawartha Lake. So aquatic plants are collected and then look at the different species and look at the presence of starry stonewort. So like Kawartha Water Watch, every volunteer is given a sampling kit. And this helps us to fill in a lot of the gaps that we have in the nearshore environment from the lake management plan. And at the end of the project, there's report on the findings from all the data that is collected. And this data is also helpful in directing our stewardship projects. And as I mentioned before, it's a University of Ontario Institute of Technology project. And we also received funding from the Great Lakes Local Action Fund to help fund this project. So the last project that I'm going to talk about that's taking place at Kawartha Conservation, it's also a Great Lakes Action Fund project. It's funded by the Great Lakes Action Fund project. And it is a nearshore aquatic plant control study. And we're looking at how bubblers can reduce the number of aquatic plants in the nearshore environment. And these are technologies that haven't been studied extensively. So we're looking at how effective are these technologies in controlling aquatic plants. And then we're also looking at what are the potential impacts in the physical environment in the nearshore from using these bubblers, as well as the chemical and the ecosystem impacts. So we have volunteers on Lake Scugog, Balsam, and Cameron Lakes for 2021 who've already provided locations where we can install a bubbler. And potentially in the future, we'll be looking at different technologies other than bubblers. So we may be looking for more volunteers in the future. So this one project is one where we've obtained our volunteers in our locations, and we're not currently looking for any new volunteers this year, but we may be looking for new volunteers in the future. And as I mentioned, this also is funded by the Great Lakes Local Action Fund. So if you'd like to get involved with citizen science at Kawartha Conservation, we've tried to make it as easy as possible. So if you go to our website, kawarthaconservation.com, then at the top of our website, you can see I have it circled in red there. There's a link and it's called Learn and Get Involved. And you click on that link and it opens the page that you can see below. And you can see the gentleman there taking a sample and it has citizen science. And if you click on that link, then it opens up another window where you can see all of our different projects. And it also has a page where you can enter your information and indicate which projects you're interested in. And then a member of our staff will get back to you and let you know how you can take part. So we have different staff members who are overseeing the different projects. I'm overseeing the Senior Citizens Climate Action Project, and our aquatic biologist is overseeing the Nearshore Aquatic Plant Project, and our water quality specialist is working with U of IT on the Nearshore Water Sampling Project. In addition to Kawartha Conservation, I thought I'd include some other links where people can get involved with projects. So there's a number of links out there that provide information on how you can get involved and where you can go. So the one that jumped out at me, because I'm involved in a lot of birding ones, is all kinds of different birding projects where you can become a volunteer and get involved in citizen science. So there's lots of information out there, and this information will be available for everybody at the end of the presentation if you want to go back and revisit these links. So at this time, I know my presentation wasn't too long. I tried to keep it to 15 minutes, and I think I've managed to. So I'm going to just open up the table for questions. And before I do that, I'd just like to remind you that our next citizen science session is, or not citizen science, our next lunch and learn session by the IWM program is low water, and that's being conducted by Irina Sholyarenko on the 18th. So she's going to talk about low water and Kawartha Conservation's low water response program.
Thank you, Rob. That's great presentation and great overview of our programs. So I have been watching the chat and there haven't been any questions that have come up in that. So I guess I invite you all, if you have, turn your cameras on and unmute yourselves, feel free, and then ask Rob any questions that you might have.
I'll also stop sharing. So. Got to thank you, very informative and no questions. So I must have answered all the questions during the presentation.
So I guess, Rob, I think it'd be interesting just in terms of some of the current programs we've got, what kind of work is involved for those citizen scientists? What are they doing? Is it a weekly, is it a daily activity? If you can maybe just select one of those programs and just talk a bit about the detail around that.
Okay, well, the one I'm the most familiar with is the senior science, the Senior Citizens Climate Action Group. So I'll talk a little bit about that. So for the participants, one of the requirements is the funding is through. I'm trying to think of who the funding's through now. I should know that off by heart by now. But anyway, the requirement in the funding is that they have to be senior citizens. So if you're 65 and over, you can participate. And what we're looking for is the majority of the volunteers to just install a temperature logger in the water on their shoreline of a lake and also have one in the air. So that is, it's a Bluetooth temperature logger where they can download the data from. So once a month, they're going to download the data onto either a tablet or a phone and then submit it to us. And then the other part of that is taking precipitation measurements on a daily basis for the next 6 months. So the amount of time that it requires, it's fairly straightforward to take a precipitation measurement. It's only a couple minutes each morning, and then maybe half an hour to download the data from the temperature loggers each month. And then we're also looking for a few people to mentor people in that program. So just to help them with the technology if they get stuck on the technology, and just to go over, you know, if they have questions about precipitation monitoring or anything like that. So they might have to put in a little bit more time, maybe over the course of a month, a couple of hours, just to help other people out with stuff that they're working on and how to submit data and things like that.
That's great.
There's some questions popping up now that I can answer if you want.
Yeah, I was just noticing in the chat. So I think Kimberly had a question. How do you link with other associations like Land Between and other groups in the area?
So one that I can talk about. So for Kawartha Water Watch, if there's cottage associations that are interested in volunteering, then they can take part as an association. That's been a pretty common way for cottage associations as a group to get involved with us. The Land Between, I know we've done some work with them in the past. We had a project in Nogies Creek area, so we were working on mapping and things like that. So we were sharing as an organization. So Kawartha Conservation was sharing information about mapping of natural areas and natural features with the Land Between. I'm trying to think of, I mentioned a few of the other organizations that are involved in the Nearshore monitoring project, particularly the University of Ontario Institute of Technology. And there's Trent University's also partnered with us in the past on different projects, not necessarily always citizen science, but some of them have been related to citizen science. We have a strong working relationship with Fleming College. We actually partner with them in some, I guess it's almost like student-driven citizen science, where they do some of their learning on tributaries in the Lindsay area, and then we collect data while we're out there with them. So, or they collect data for us. So, yeah, we have really good connections with the organizations around us. Trent Severn Waterway, we've been involved with in the past, and our aquatic biologist is currently, he's working with them on the walleye watch and trying to look at different ways of enhancing the habitat for walleye on the Trent Severn system. So I guess to answer that question, how do we link with them? It's either through specific projects that we're working on, or if they have projects that we can get involved with where we can provide some of the resources where people can, for example, the walleye watch, where we can get volunteers involved in looking for walleye and things like that. So it's kind of as projects arise or if they have specific needs. The second question I see there now is, who is the contact for the bubblers? That would be Brett Trigano, our aquatic biologist. He's coordinating that. So as I mentioned in the presentation, we're working with 3 specific volunteers right now for this year, but there may be opportunities in the future to look at the technology again at different locations. So we're not currently seeking a volunteer for that project, but there might be some next year.
Thanks, Rob. Are there any other questions that anybody has? So Rob, I was just wondering, from if somebody did want to get involved with a particular program, what the expected duration of that involvement is. I know with some programs, people have been around for many years, but that's not necessarily what we're expecting. So I just wondered if you wanted to share that with everybody.
No, and the nature of volunteering is you're committing the time that you have available, right? So if this is a really great year because of COVID and things like that, and you're going to be around the lake, then that's perfect. We can utilize you. It would be nice to have people stay for the duration of this season, right? If they start doing volunteer water quality monitoring for 2021, to stick around for the 2021 season, but there's no requirement to stay on for the next year or 5 years or anything like that. It's as you're available. That's the nature of volunteering. So, and even during the course of a volunteer project, if there's a week where you go on vacation and you can't collect data, then that's part of volunteering as well. Like, we don't expect you to, you don't have to stay home for the entire next 6 months and take a precipitation reading every single day. That's not something that we would expect somebody to do. So it's fine if you have commitments that interrupt the flow of the volunteering. That's expected in volunteering. So I always make it clear to volunteers to not feel guilty that they're going off to do something else because it's volunteering, right? That's not something that you have to worry about.
Thank you. Okay, I'm not seeing any more questions at this point. If you do think of a question after the event, obviously reach out to Rob or myself or anyone in the team. We'll be happy to help. I would like to just say a big thank you for you two all for attending today. It's great to have everybody with us. And also just want to shout out to our existing citizen scientists. We have a fantastic network of people that help us with our programs. So just want to really recognise that as well. And just finally, Rob mentioned it, but our next session is on June 18th, which is focusing on drought and low water. So if you're interested in that, please register for the next event. And with that, I will say thank you very much to Rob, and thank you very much to you all joining us today.
Yeah, you're welcome. And thank you everybody for coming.